heart has a unique property which we call as autorhythmicity. Okay, so the autorhythmicity of the heart is the property by which it can generate its own impulse. Okay, this is accomplished through your SA node, which is the pacemaker of your heart, normal heart. Okay, so how this happens is the resting membrane potential of your SA node is only minus 60 millivolt. Okay, so during the resting membrane potential, it is not, the resting membrane potential of the SA node is not actually stable, because there occurs a leakage of sodium. Okay, whenever there occurs a leakage, so sodium will come inside the cell. This ICF, this is easier. So there occurs leakage of sodium through channels which we call as H channels or F channels. Okay, so இது occur ஆயிட்டு இருக்கும்போது it will minus 60 ல இருந்து it will move towards the positivity, that is minus 55 வரைக்கும் வரும், 55 millivolts. Minus 55, till this it is the initial part of your pacemaker potential. After that, what happens is that the calcium will influx into the cell through transient calcium channels, T channels. Okay, transient calcium channels la irundhu the calcium will come inside the cell. This increases positivity further, and also the sarcoplasmic reticulum la irundhu the calcium will be leaking. This is called your calcium sparks. Okay, these both will form your later part of your pacemaker potential. Okay, so idanagum already minus 60 la irundhu initially sodium influx nala minus 55 millivolt vandiruchu. Minus 50 la further calcium ulla vandanala it will again fall back to further minus 40 varaikum poirum. Minus 40 is nothing but the firing level of your action potential. சரியா, அதுதான் threshold. So minus 40 reach ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் action potential will get generated. So இதில் என்ன ஆகும், as you know in the ventricular cell, இங்கே SA நோடில் என்ன ஆகும்னா the depolarization, first rapid depolarization will occur, but the difference is that here the initial phase, the rapid depolarization phase, it is not due to the sodium influx, but it is due to the calcium influx through your L channels, that is long lasting calcium channels. Okay, so idanagum depolarization na it will minus 40 la irundhu it will become positive, right? So plus 5 millivolt varaikum pogum. Then occurs your repolarization. So repolarization la enna nadakumna it will go back to the negative side. So enna agum inge plus 5 millivolt varaikum vanducha, plus 5 varaikum vanduchu. Repolarization phase la enna agum already open ana calcium channels vandu they will get closed. சரியா, the calcium channels vandu they will get closed, so there will be no entry of calcium, but the potassium channels, a particular type of potassium channels will open. So enna agumna உள்ள இருக்கிற potassium will go into the ECF. So இங்கே positivity decrease ஆகி negative side move ஆக ஆரம்பிக்கும். So it will go towards negative side. So this is rapid repolarization, and further அப்படியே negative ஆகிக்கிட்டே இருக்க ultimately it will reach its resting membrane potential of minus 60 millivolt. But it is important to note that this is not at all stable. So என்னாகும், அந்த இடத்துல ரீச் ஆனனாலையும் இது என்னாகும் ஃபர்தராக வந்து சோடியம் லீக் ஆக ஆரம்பிச்சிரும். சோடியம் லீக் ஆக ஆரம்பிச்சு இனிஷியல் டீபோலரைசேஷன் நடந்து அடுத்த இம்பல்ஸ் will get generated. And it is the normal rhythmicity of the SA node. It is regulated by your vagus. Okay, vagus it is important to note that the embryo la vandu the right side of the embryo it gives rise to your SA node. so that the right vagal, most of the right vagal fibers, they goes to the SA node. You know, vagus is parasympathetic in nature. So vagal nerve endings will release acetylcholine. Okay. So this acetylcholine will increase the permeability of the potassium channels in the sarcolemma. சரியா? So potassium என்னாகும் ஃபர்தராக வெளியே போய்கிட்டே இருக்கும். ஸோ இது வெளியே போய்கிட்டே இருக்கிறப்போ ஆர்எம்பியில் இருக்கிற ஆல்ரெடி இட் இஸ் நெகட்டிவ் ரைட், -60 millivoltsல இருக்கு. ஸோ பொட்டாசியம் ஃபர்தராக வெளியே போய்கிட்டே இருந்ததுன்னா இட் வில் கெட் ஹைப்பர் போலரைஸ்ட். ஹைப்பர் போலரைஸ்ட் இஸ் போலரைசேஷன் இஸ் நத்திங் பட் the RMP, when RMP becomes much more the potential becomes much more negative than your RMP. Okay, so this hyperpolarization enagona, this will induce your F channels or H channels, what you call as your the sodium channels. So through these channels the sodium will get leaked, resulting in the firing level. Okay, so normally இது என்னாகும்னா the you can see like -60 millivoltல இருக்கு, ஃபர்தராக அது நெகட்டிவ் ஆகுறது, say it to be -65 வச்சுக்கோங்களேன். ஸோ whenever firing level வந்து உங்களுக்கு -40 millivolt தான். ஸோ the time for depolarization from -65 to reach a -40 is very high comparing from -60 to -40. So this is how the vagus acts. You know, normal automatic rate of your SA node discharge vandu it is 90 to 120 impulses per minute. Seriya? So through this hyperpolarization, this vagus will decrease from this level to the actual heart rate of 72 beats per minute. Okay. The normal vagal activity will decrease it from here to here. This is what we call as your vagal tone. So let's see about the autonomic regulation of the heart. First, let's see the parasympathetic stimulation. Okay, so what happens here is whenever the vagus is stimulated, acetylcholine release is increased, which goes and binds to the M2 muscarinic receptors. Okay, that will act via the beta and gamma subunit of your G protein, which in turn increases the permeability for potassium, resulting in your potassium efflux. So as I said earlier, the potassium efflux will result in your hyperpolarization, thus decreasing the heart rate. And also activation of the M2 receptors, when they get activated, they will result in decreased cyclic AMP levels inside the cell. Whenever it is decreased, there occurs this the release of calcium from the calcium channels is very slow calcium release. Okay, so whenever this happens, the time taken for the pacemaker cell to reach the firing threshold level, the time taken is increased. So the heart rate is ultimately decreased. Strong parasympathetic stimulation may even result in blockage of transmission of the impulse from atrium to the ventricle, and the ventricle may even stop beating for about 4 to 10 seconds. Whenever this happens, the Purkinje fibers will generate their own rhythm, their own action potential. And they'll become the pacemaker they'll become the pacemaker, and they'll cause the ventricle to beat at a rate of 15 to 40 beats per minute, which we call as your vagal escape. Okay, so next let's consider the the sympathetic stimulation. In case of sympathetic stimulation, noradrenaline release is increased, it goes and binds to beta 1 receptor, and this increases the cyclic AMP levels, and this in turn activate the L type long lasting calcium channels. So the calcium influx inside the cell is increased. So when this is increased, the time taken for the pacemaker cell to reach the firing level, it is very much reduced, thus increasing the heart rate. Okay, and the rate at which the SA node discharge, it also depends on the temperature and drugs. Okay, in case of increased temperature, the rate of discharge is increased. This you can correlate to tachycardia associated with fever. Okay, rate of discharge of the SA node is also affected by drugs like your digitalis. Digitalis, what does is it depresses the nodal tissue. Okay, it depresses the nodal tissue, and it has a similar effect as that of your vagal stimulation. Mainly it acts on your AV node. Okay.